Welcome to Charting Change in Legal. I'm Ari Kaplan, an analyst that covers the legal industry, and I am here with.
Caroline Hill. Hi, everyone. I'm the editor-in-chief of Legal IT Insider. Great to be here with you, Ari.
It's always a privilege, and as we approach Thanksgiving, I am grateful for the opportunity every single time we chat. So it's wonderful to see you.
It's Thanksgiving soon. Hey, my goodness. Everyone is just going to go offline. We're going to have some peace over here in the UK.
Actually, my favorite time to travel is Thanksgiving. Taken several trips abroad because it's not Thanksgiving anywhere, and I always enjoy that. But yes, I like Thanksgiving. I have to tell everyone who's listening, the four of us will appreciate this, that I've always wanted to hold the balloon in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I grew up in New York City. As a kid, I always watched the parade on TV, and I always imagined like holding. Here I am in my 50s. I'm like, uh. I'm never going to realize that one dream of like holding the balloon and I would always imagine my balloon blowing away or popping against the lamppost. But Thanksgiving always reminds me of that. Just,
Can someone make that happen?
there's
Can
always some
either of
can
our
is there somebody can either of you contact Macy's and say Ari would like to hold the balloon? There's the million strings. Like they must have someone's got to get sick.
right?
Traffic. There's got to be something.
I'm getting in touch. I
There
don't
you
even I
go.
don't
I've
even know what
said
this
it.
is.
I've just said it. I'm going to say it. You know what? I'm doing a webinar today. I'm going to say it on the webinar. I'm just going to throw it out into the universe. Anyway, I saw some great photos of you at
Oh
the
yeah.
British Legal Technology Awards, right?
Yeah, it was super fun. Yeah, they had this 360. Anybody who organizes events, right, you need to look into this because this is the first time I've seen this or done it, and I go to a lot of events. So it's a 360 photograph where you stand on it with as many people as you like. I'm sure there's a limit. I'm sure we disrespected the limit. But anyway, I think so you stand there with your back to each other and there's like a circular platform. And there's some funny fancy dress and stuff like that. And it's like the circular metal thing. And everybody that I went on it with thought that it was going to spin, which given that it was a party and that there was a little bit of wine involved would be really disastrous. Like and so there were people like preparing to spin. There was nothing to hold on to. You were just standing on this circular platform and then he was like, the photographer was like, ready? And everyone's like bracing themselves to spin. Anyway, and then the camera spins around you, thank God. And it creates this sort of video, this sort of 360 motion
Mm.
video, which is to music, super fun, so fun. And it's
I
great to have kind of mementos from those sort of events, right? Like, because you go to a ton of these things, and actually to have that to take away is really cool.
I feel like that has really summed up the legal industry over the past year. Just a constant spinning, and you and I are the camera, just watching it revolve and charting that change, if you will. But it was a fun picture. It looked like you were there with some all stars, and it looked like a great event. And so, tell me about what you're seeing as we head into the close of the year. I know we'll do hopefully several episodes before year end, but curious to see what you're seeing there.
Yeah, we're going to start doing some forecasting. So if anybody's interested, then, get in touch. I'm going to be doing some podcasts, looking at, anybody sort of reflecting on the past year and also next year and what that's going to bring. Um, I think, and I haven't actually started. I've got the orange rag, the last orange rag of the year coming out on the 11th of December. So starting to engage in those conversations a bit late, to be honest, over the next week or two. So I haven't really been having those conversations yet. I think it's going to be super interesting as to what people say. Obviously, it's been a huge year for Gen AI. I suspect that the conversations will be around maturing definitive use cases and all of that kind of stuff and sort of a changing position on the hype cycle, obviously depending on who you speak to, and then probably continuation of more of the same for next year. I wonder if anyone will talk about anything not Gen AI related. That would be fun to see. Have you started having those end of year conversations yet?
Yes, and I have been really earnestly trying to use generative AI as often as I can, just in terms of creating an outline or a list or a set of questions when I'm having conversations. I just think that there are very practical ways that you can shave off bits of time. Not massive amounts of time yet, for me at least, but those bits of time really add up, especially if it's consistent and you're doing it daily. So I'm actually trying to figure out how all of, as you have, I've had hundreds of conversations with leaders in our space this year, and I'm trying to figure out what does it all mean in terms of next year. I was on a podcast recently, and I don't know why, but they picked out this one segment where I was saying how nobody really knows what's going on, and I don't know what's going on, but I'll at least try to gather a bunch of perspectives together and tell you what most people feel is going on, and maybe you can plan that way. And then I was like, why would you pick that? I was just like monologuing on on something, but in the end, it actually was a coherent thought. But I feel like that's still where we are. And every time I talk to somebody, people ask, how can it be that everyone says they're using this, but nobody understands how to best use it? How is that? How do you reconcile those two thoughts?
It's such a
And
journey. It's such a
yeah.
journey. Your point about using it in your daily life has come up a lot recently. It's really interesting, including with the journo crowd, Bob Ambrogi and Nikki Black, and
Hmm.
on some of the conversations I've been having with them
Yeah.
on the panel, the Friday Bob's Friday evening panel, we were talking about whether we use it, and most people said no. Nikki Black uses it a lot. And I've actually started, I think you're absolutely right. You've got to practice what you preach. It's all very well saying, oh, you got to get familiar with the technology and it's moving on really fast. But if you're not then putting it into practice and getting familiar with the technology yourself, then what are you doing? And I actually used it to start an article that I wrote recently, which was super fun, and it's debatable whether it saves time. I think these are sort of familiar thick conversations, debatable whether it saves time. And actually, I had to change a lot of stuff, but it was quite a complex topic, and it was that old thing, about it's great to have a starting point that you can then edit, and you can, Bob's view was people come to us to read our stuff and not AI's, and actually you have to be very careful about that. Nikki Black was saying, well, there's tons of stuff you can use it to create efficiencies. Why would you not? And I think they're both right, actually.
Well, I
um,
agree with Bob. Just to give people an example. So
mm,
actually, we've been experimenting with this on the virtual lunch because we've been talking about AI several months in a row. And this month is about the benefits of practical AI. And so I'm not using it to actually create things. But if I'm, for example, writing an article, as you might, about a webinar, I would take the transcript and say, please just pull out any comments or statements by Caroline Hill so that I can quickly, instead of scanning a 1 hour transcript, I can quickly see what quotes I should pull. And then I check them with you. And it's actually fantastic at doing that. It's not creating anything. The problem with the creation I have found for me is that then you're right. It'll create something. I have to go back, make sure it's correct, check things if it drew references from somewhere else, and I find that annoying. It's not really ready yet. But when I ask it to create a list, upload a chat transcript from a Zoom call or something, and say, I make a list of everything I said as a kind of a checklist. And, then I can easily check that too. So I've been using it. It just expedites
yeah.
the process, especially again, just what am I doing that drives things forward, creates revenue, you know, promotes progress, and what am I doing that's just time consuming and that removes me from that. And that's what I've been thinking about. And the truth is, whenever so when you and I and Bob and Nikki, I mean, the three of you are leaders and experts in our space. It's different than when you're talking to someone that's running a firm or a practitioner that's got several different levels of individuals that they're managing. When they start to realize how quickly this can happen, it creates real transformation. Obviously, we should be in the early adopter stage and trying it because we're talking about it and people
Yeah.
are asking us questions. But I'm now really talking to folks who are in organizations of all sizes, and that you start hearing them talk about true transformation in their organization in terms of staffing, reallocating workflow. I think that's what's going to happen pretty quickly next year.
100% sure. 100%. There's certain things, that there's companies that are sort of, particularly around the onboarding space, around, you know, yeah, I think we're starting to see really substantive changes. But there's also a ton of firms that are really, not anywhere on the journey still. I do think you should start to get worried if you're nowhere, to be frank. I think that, playing around with it in safety, there's different options now to do that. And I think it's on all of us to make sure that we're actually doing that, in a safe space, getting people familiar, and there are all sorts of organizations which are helping. I know all of this costs money, but this is one of those times when you're going to have to look, if you haven't done this, and you should start to think, we need to be playing around with this. We need to be working out how it fits within our business. And if we're not, we should definitely be panicking. Or yeah, I think it's kind of got to that stage personally.
Yeah. I've been using, you may have seen this, but I've been using Notebook LM,
Right.
Google's tool, and I'll like upload a report, and it's incredible to hear. So recently I did it with a legal operations report, and there's a lot of discussion about the deployment of AI in legal operations for contracts, et cetera, in corporate legal departments. And to listen to the AI generated voices discuss the use of AI and whether it's necessary and how it should be balanced with human, because it's based on my report and the quotes in the report and the stats. It like literally comes up with just incredible insights on itself. And I was listening to it and just reacting, and my wife was in the room, who's a practicing lawyer, who is in court every day, and she's like, what, why are you laughing? Like, because I was listening to it with headphones to try to be courteous, except I was laughing the whole time. And I just said, you wouldn't believe that this thing is like hearing me. It is like I'm emotionally connected to the fact that it totally got my analysis. And then I thought, wow, that is just it repeated a few things too. It found like some fun phrases, and it just said them several times throughout the conversation. And I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting hiccup for it. It just kept talking about this. They kept looping on and I think it was when it came to AI, it was almost like they were having their own internal conflict. Like, oh, is AI like, what are we talking about here? We're telling people have to use AI, but we're the AI. We're amazing. And I'm just imagining this inner turmoil happening through Notebook LM. So there'll be likely more of that, and maybe some more comedy. But
Oh my
um,
God, I mean, that's too funny. Like that
yeah,
is just brilliant. I am not quite as funny, but I hosted chaired a panel at Net Documents with Zach Abramovich,
yeah,
the head of privacy, head of IT for Coca-Cola European Partners, Michael Scooby, and Jen Poon, who is at Net Documents. And we were talking about, they're not nearly as funny as that, although they were brilliant. But they were talking about how we focus on the generative side of AI, which I do, you do, we typically quite often do. That's the temptation. But they were going, Zach's very funny speaker, very entertaining, and he was talking about the search ability and the ability to converse. And what reminded me is that very human way we now interact, and you kind of almost we do humanize the technology now, including the output. And because you're engaging in a way that we've never engaged before, we're able to search in natural language, truly natural language. We're able to ask all sorts of questions and interrogate our data in the most incredible way, and the search functionality, when you just ask for that needle in a haystack in your own emails or wherever it might be, it's just amazing.
yeah, if you can direct it to a defined set of information, if you ask it to go into the universe and find you something and do something, it's suspect in some cases. For me, I've tried to be very clear that this is my experience, and I want to just I'm not, as the Switzerland of legal, I'm not opining on the validity of anybody else's results, any particular
Right.
tool. Absolutely not. But I do think that if you, as you said, and I mentioned using a transcript of a Zoom chat or a transcript of a webinar or something. In that case, it's really, really effective. Even if I upload a report. In fact, every stat, because I check that, it got correct. In fact, it there was a stat that was sort of like 47% of something, and it said something like almost half. And I was like, no, it did not just do that. It was very cool. I mean, look, it's obviously very exciting. I'm not going to ask it to make a holiday list or something for me, just to randomly decide what kind of gifts I should get for people. But because I did that once with a itinerary for a trip, and it
I
made
remember
it made up, it
what
made
I
up
was talking
made
about.
up tour sites. I was like, oh, my wife's gonna be so impressed with this. And thankfully she never read it because she's like, this is not gonna, I don't know what he just prepared, but it's I'm confident it's nonsense and I will completely disregard it. But good try. And I was like, thank you so much. All I want is the credit. Anyway.
The thing is,
Wow, to our several listeners, I just want to
oh.
thank you for withstanding this just total banter that has nothing to do with charting change in legal. And yet here we are at the end of our time.
Oh my
Caroline
God.
Hill, I look forward to another and really much deeper
Yeah,
conversation about where we're headed, where we have been. But thank you for joining me today.
I can't wait. Next time, Ari, I'm going to bring you
Sounds
masses of intelligence.
masses. Oh gosh, this is going to be the most thoughtful
All,
conversation
all
ever.
generated by ChatGPT.
That's right. Next time, a notebook LM. We won't even be here. We're just gonna have this is. I'm gonna do that. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna upload this. I'm gonna be like, can you clean this up? Can you guys just put your voice there and throw in some cool stuff? Thank you very much. You've been a great audience.
Bye.